and there are PCC controllers in various stages of assembly. That's very early stages. The next one over here is probably complete. Over here is another one in fairly early stages of construction. You can see the copper ring around the top, and the twin wheels press fingers against these to give you your notches. This one here has the fingers assembled, but there's no resistances installed yet. As there's twin wheels pressing on opposite sides, the two sides of the ring are numbered, the contacts are numbered 135 on one side and 246 on the other side, up to 99. And under the bench there's a pair of twin wheels. It looks as though those springs, focus maybe, those springs keep the tension up, and they're strong enough to overcome the tension of the fingers. The wheels, by the way, are just made of plastic or something like that. Much of the body of the thing appears to be made of fibre, so I don't think technology has changed much in the 50 or so years since the basic method was evolved. By the looks of this one, all the parts are brand new, so I suppose up to a point they do make brand new ones of these rather than just trying to fix up the old ones all the time. It's one of the wheels. It's about 6 inches in diameter, and it's made of fibre. On the floor here, I've just found a pair of rings of two different units, of course, and you can see just down there that there's been a problem with the contacts. Apparently sometimes they do arc together, and you can see a certain amount of damage on those too. This would mean presumably that when you take first notch you might get notch 35 or something straight off, so there'd be quite a thump. There's one of the fingers. In fact, there's a whole box full of them there. More below. I gather they make them here in the workshops. Must have thousands of them in use. Just found another segment of the circle, and you can see they get rather zapped up. In fact, it looks just as bad as a Clyde, that one. And, I don't know what lifespan they have, or whether lack of maintenance has contributed to this, but it certainly isn't much good like that. To test whether the contacts are actually touching, they use this piece of paper folded over with some carbon paper inside, and you can see a bit of variety of contact there. Some of them, that horizontal black line in the middle of the screen is considered poor, although I wouldn't say the others look real fantastic either. I'm not sure whether this unit's just been overhauled or what stage it is in.
And also 2 and 4.
Yeah, that in that position 1 and 3 are bridged, and also 2 and 4. And yeah, can you turn it please, Peter? And it gradually notches up. You can see the contacts being pushed against the outer ring as it goes around, and that gives the acceleration. Obviously in the tram the motor is turned at a constant rate by an electric motor. Also, you might realise that it never goes to off. It only ever goes to first notch, and the line breaker does the rest. Also, there's no sign of any blowout coils, so the steps between each notch has to be fairly small, otherwise they'd be arcing. I guess that sort of shows the unit. Only waited half an hour for this. Some discussions taken place over the use of the heat from this for heating in winter, but there's two problems. Without filters you get dust and stuff coming off these, I suppose, as the metal very slowly burns, and also the noise from the blowers for cooling the thing and thus forcing it into the tram is also unacceptably high, so presumably the heat is then lost, and separate heaters have to be used for warming the cars in winter. And that's one of the resistance steps. It's about 12 inches long and rather springy stuff, whatever it is. And as you can see, there's heaps of them on the table. I tend to think these PCC things might be somewhat labour intensive, because as you can see, there's another one of these being assembled here as well. Yeah, Peter's just holding up one of the pilot motors for the controllers. Not especially big. And this is a section where they're all repaired. And this is one of the controllers from the old Gotha built cars. That's for a Schreiner who works in here, and she was showing us yes, these Eastern ladies have to work. She normally works on reverses for the Gotha cars. It is a cam type controller. Okay. As you can see, it's geared with roughly double reduction.
0 and steps.
And then the braking notches, so yeah, it goes around about twice. I guess it'll take a bit of getting used to.
Stop.
One curious thing about this controller is that in the forwards position, when you go a bit further, you've got only motor 1 and then further only motor 2. But in the backwards position, you can only, that's number 2 motor. In the backwards position, you have only motors 1 and 2. So if you had this controller in a single-ended car and you blew a motor, you wouldn't be able to drive it at all backwards. But usually this controller was in a double-ended car, and of course you could then select 1 or 2 motor at the other end. Yeah, once upon a time Honecker was everywhere for real, but now if you see him anywhere, he's just there as a joke. But, yeah, I nearly overlooked this. This is a controller unit, foot controller. The larger pedal's the accelerator and the smaller one is for braking. Not a terribly large unit, and of course there's heaps of them on the shelves. In general, I won't bore you with too much in the workshops here. It does look a lot like Preston, as a matter of fact, but with a bit more happening. That orange one there is a driver instruction car, and it looks like it has a second seat for a second driver, who'd be the instructor, and presumably an emergency brake for him as well. There's a traverser in the middle here, and a whole row of cars being worked on down here. As I said, I won't take too much in here unless there's something special to see. I guess these are Tatra drive units. Not only is it a right-angle drive, but it also has a bit of reduction by the looks of things. Yeah, this is a complete Bogey. See the gearbox in the middle, 643 upside down. The green there is the end of the traction motor with an opening for ventilation, forced air ventilation on the top, and that drives through a cardan shaft to the gearbox at the other end, more or less PCC-ish. But the motors just sort of look a little bit different, plus they're very well buried in all that stuff. I'll try another angle if I can. There's a row of traction motors partly set up in their Bogey frame. They're not especially big. On the left there, that's the magnet for the disc brakes which are attached to the motor. The arm on the left is to disconnect that brake, very much like the PCC at Spur. There's a traction motor on the floor. It'd barely be 2 foot long. It's certainly not very big. That shows the rubber bushing that goes in the wheel. There's one partly assembled, and then the nut goes on the outside. Not precisely clear how it does the resilience, but no doubt it works. I don't know if you can see it, but on the left hand side of the nut they weld a little flat strip, and that stops the nut from coming off. These are motor generators, and the end extremities are the blowers for the traction motors, resistances and so on. Tail wagon gets under the live wire. Melbourne's not the only place that smashes up the odd pantograph or two. Oops. I seem to be playing trams again.
Welche Zeit brauchst du direkt, wo ihr wegfahrt? 11:30, ja?
Wo wollen wir denn hin?
Yeah, this is how they put down track in Leipzig. The track's prepared in advance with the concrete in the middle, and the whole lot is sat on a bed of sand. The only problem is, of course, sometimes the sand gradually subsides and you have an uneven road surface. I suspect these sections have been used a bit but are not completely worn out. Just before the workshops there's a few hundred yards of single track over a railway line, a little bit like the hump but with curves, and only last week this car and another one sort of met head on the single track. And you'd think with track brakes and all the rest and watching where you're going they'd be able to stop, but obviously not. Crap, because it's got a bent frame, and I don't imagine the future of this one's too good either. This is the other one involved in that smash, considerably worse off than the other one, considerably. It must have just been the angle that they hit. As I said, with track brakes you'd think they could stop. Heavens knows how the driver got out. Of course that's his cab, halfway back into the tram. I think that might be another victim from the collision. Said something about scrapping the trailer. Yeah, just like Randwick, this is where they do scrap the trams. I suppose that pile of stuff is bits of tram. I'll see if there's any souvenirs to get. A bit hard to see in this light, but there's obviously some tram bits there, and it seems the scrap metal's going straight into the railway wagons. Can't burn them, there's nothing to burn. Yeah, 501 was pulled off its bogies only seconds before I got here with the camera. When Peter called out it was still standing up, and next thing it's over, so a little bit late for that. But this is all bits of tram, a great mountain of it. Surprising enough though, with all of this, the system is expanding, so possibly when cars get too badly damaged they just smash them up into little pieces and cart it all the way, and I gather they must be getting occasional new trams to make up for it. Although they are still running four-wheelers, at least in the two rooms and a bath fashion, so it seems a bit odd that they're scrapping bogey cars when they're still running four-wheelers. The stack there seems to be of trucks from the four-wheelers cut in half. The train's busy loading, and on a happier note, around a bit further, car, presumably a trailer, looks like you're sandblasting it, and a nice little steeple cab locomotive as well. That's at the end of the wire, but presumably they shunt the railway wagons with a rope or something. Looks like the jaws are ready to attack. Oh, they're getting ready to take the bogies away. Much like Randwick, roll them off the bogies, get them out of the way. Anyway. Must go to the bogies for the next victim, I guess. Looks like the crane is dragging those railway wagons up towards the little loco. Jaws are attacking now. Oh. I don't know what's worse, watching them burn or watching them get ripped to pieces. I can't say it looks terribly solid though. There's the roof off, or half of it. Over onto the stack with all the rest, I guess. I guess he's done it before. Yes, these are bits and pieces off the bogie, so they don't need any more. Onto the scrap heap. If there's anything worth getting, Barry, I would, but I don't think there really is. And the train in the background. Here comes the works motor of the bogies again. One's just about finished now, isn't it? So is a hand grinder. Looks like that blade's coming out. New one to go in. They don't look quite as solid as the Melbourne ones. There's our old car, possibly for our trip today, I don't know. One thing that's different is that here the point blades are actually welded onto the end, so the blades themselves spring. This would eliminate the wear that you get where that hinge section is in Melbourne. I don't know how hard they'd be to change, but the fellas are lining it all up pretty carefully.